Okay, great.
There we go. I got it. Okay, it's August 21st, 2023. It's at 4 o'clock, a little bit after. We're just starting the grants and reporting
There we go.
commission. Oop, can you hear me? And I guess we'll take roll at this time.
Sorry about that. Okay. The Honorable Missy Maderi,
I'm here.
the Honorable Sharon Keller,
Here.
the Honorable Sherry Reddick.
Here.
Chair, we have quorum.
All righty, let's proceed.
The first item is adoption of the minutes. And we do have a motion. I can read that for you if you like.
Is there a motion to approve the minutes from the June 28, 2023 Grants and Reporting Committee meeting?
So move.
Second.
Excellent. And up first, we have the
So we need a vote. We have a motion and a second. We need a vote.
Oh, all in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Thank you. So on pages 8, 9, and 10, we have our standard budget update documents, which I'm happy to take any questions on, but really the main thing for discussion today would be on page 11. So page 11 is our budget proposal for 2024. So are there any questions about the regular budget items on page 8 through 11? Through 10, rather? Okay. So let me just get you all up to speed on the staff's recommended budget proposal for FY24. As you can see on your screen, we've listed both fiscal year 24 proposed budget as well as fiscal year 25. As you all know, the legislature provides our appropriations in biennial chunks, and so we thought it was helpful to see both years of the biennium together. The most unusual thing that's on our proposal here is if you look in the first column for the proposed 24 budget, the very first item below the appropriation section, so we are appropriated 92.6 million for the fiscal year 24, is we have showing here a potential carry forward of grant obligations from fiscal year 2023. The reason that is here is because we've learned from the comptroller just within the last few days that they're looking at different numbers than us in terms of the amounts of funds available in the Fair Defense account that we can use to pay the remainder of our FY23 expenses. So this issue kind of cropped up late last week. We've been going back and forth with folks in the comptroller's office to clear it up. We remain optimistic that it is going to be cleared up, but at this juncture, they're telling us that they believe that we are going to have some funds that will need to be carried, or some obligations that will need to be funded out of the subsequent fiscal year. The issue has to do with the budget for the OCFW, the Office of Capital and Forensic Writs, which is the only other issue that is funded out of the Fair Defense account. And some of the funds that are currently appear as available in the fund are tied up or obligated for OCFW in previous budget years, even though, of course, they've already kind of spent down their funds in their appropriations. So we're trying to get to the bottom of it. In the meantime, as we hope for the best, and we think we can resolve this with the comptroller and clarify it, we're going to operate under the assumption that we don't have access to those funds, which is what they're telling us today. If that is the case, we think that we'll have to carry forward about 6 million, and that's at the upper end. I would think that, if we do have to deal with this, it will be lower than that. But being conservative, we think that we may need to fund, worst case scenario, somewhere around 6 million in remaining FY23 grant payments out of our FY24 budget. So that first item under budget for FY24 shows about 6 million. Again, I think that if this does come to pass, it'll be a lower number that we need to deal with this in this way. So if we're operating on this kind of worst case scenario, the proposed budget for next year would take half from the formula grant and half from the improvement grants. So the proposed formula grant allocation for 2024 here is shown as 17.5 million, which is 3 million less than current. And then we also have a line here to just kind of try to make clear that the additional improvement grants line, the sixth line in the budget section, additional improvement grants. We had been planning on $3 million of additional improvement grants that would be available. Something happened with the page, Doriana. Can you back up and go back? There's some problem in the way it's displaying. There we go. That cleared it up.
Okay.
So the $3 million that we would have been using for additional improvement grants, we're basically holding off for now, and we're putting a 0 on that line so that we can make the numbers work in the way that we need to make them work. If you look at the overall budget proposal, this still leaves 1.4 million at the very bottom, highlighted in green, that is unobligated based on all these assumptions or budget numbers. And again, we're trying to be conservative on how we approach this. If we are able to resolve this issue with the comptroller, which I remain hopeful that we will be, then we can come back in December when the board reconvenes and put some of these funds back into our formula line item and our improvement line item. But for now, we're just trying to be responsible and make sure we don't get ahead of ourselves. So with that, happy to answer any questions or talk through this in more detail. Okay.
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Sure. And again, one of the reasons we wanted to show both years of the biennium is so that you can see that overall for the biennium with these proposals, you still have 5.7 million unobligated. Again, that's being very conservative at this juncture until the dust settles on these questions that have arisen with the comptroller. And I think we can revisit this in December and get back closer to where we expected we would be right now. So with that, and if there are no questions, we have a motion to recommend adoption of the FY24 budget as it appears on page 11 of the Grants and Reporting Committee meeting notebook.
So move.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all. One thing before we move off this page that I want to go ahead and mention is that you'll see that in the budget section, fourth line down and fifth line down, I went ahead and put in numbers that reflect the recommendations that we're making to you all today about additional grants to award. These are programs that have been in the pipeline and that we think are very important to move forward now, and the delay would be perhaps fatal to some very complicated multi-county projects that we'll talk about. So everything that we're going to discuss from here on out is accommodated by this budget proposal. I just wanted to make it clear. We can move on to page 12. So one of the things that, one of the grants that this committee and the full board approved in June was a grant to Victoria County for a new regional public defender program that would cover Victoria, Jackson, Lavaca, and Refugio counties. Lavaca and Refugio had been availing themselves of TRL, Texas Rio Grande Legal Aid Public Defender Services, and they have decided to shift gears and work with the new county operated office out of Victoria County. So that grant has been approved. We have been working with them to begin implementation. It's a pretty big project, and we don't anticipate that they're going to be fully staffed up and running in the first half of the year. So we're proposing to extend Lavaca County's current sustainability funding for their regional program with TRLA by 6 months to give them, Lavaca County, to extend their current grant, sustainability grant by 6 months to be able to cover the time between now and when the Victoria office is operational. So we have a recommendation to award Lavaca County an FY24 sustainability grant of $124,330. Continued public defender services for 6 months.
I'll move to do that.
I'll second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Alex. So that's one of the two counties that is transitioning to the new Victoria office. And we have the same proposal here for Refugio County. This would continue their FY 2020 for their sustainability grant for 6 months into FY 2024 to help them bridge the time between now and the operation of the office. And we have a recommendation to award Refugio County an FY 2024 sustainability grant of $45,221 to need public defender services for 6 months.
So move.
Second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all. The next item is, so one of the things that we've recommended in today's meeting materials is that given the late breaking information from the comptroller's office about our different numbers that we're working from in terms of what's available to finish out the current budget year, again, out of an abundance of caution, we think we need to hit the pause button on a couple of awards that we think can wait a few months before we present them for action. And so the Burnett County request for additional social worker for their North Hill Country Regional Public Defender Office. We think this is a very good program. We anticipate bringing it back to you in December to recommend it, but we're recommending to pause and leave it pending at this time and bring it back in December for action. So without any questions, we can move on to the next one.
So Edwin, I have a question. So do you think if we leave it pending till our December, do you think we'll have something back or solid from the comptrollers by that time?
Yeah, so we've been escalating the issue with the comptroller's staff. Unfortunately, at this time of year, when we're about to turn over from one fiscal year to the other, they are apparently quite overwhelmed at this point. But we do think that we will have firm answers and clarity within the next few weeks on that question. And so that's our hope and expectation that we'll know much better where we stand. The other thing that will happen between now and the December board meeting is that final grant reports, expenditure reports will come in for FY 2023. We're still in the middle of the final quarter of FY 23. And we can already see that a number of current grant awards will underspend from what they were awarded. And so we'll have additional resources that will be available to settle up the remaining obligations from FY 23, which should, if it comes to pass that we do need to push some of these obligations forward into 2024, that number will shrink because of grants that underuse their award, that don't use their full award. So we'll be in a much better position. And I'm very optimistic that in December, we'll have really complete clarity on this particular set of questions.
How optimistic are you on the dispute that's ongoing with the comptroller's office?
I think that as I said, we've escalated our questions and our concerns and issue here. And we think that we'll be able to get a resolution or an answer back from them within the next, they originally told us it would be after Labor Day because of this very busy time at the end of the fiscal year. And we've said that we really need to report to our board before then. But I don't think it will be much further after Labor Day, worst case scenario, that we get the question resolved.
Okay, so that answers when, but how confident are you that we're going to win the argument?
So I'll just share with you that the CFO of Office of Court Administration, Jennifer Henry, and Sharon and I were all looking at this together and talking about it, and Scott Taylor's. And basically, we think it appears to be a misunderstanding from our perspective that perhaps certain funds were obligated and then the obligation wasn't released after it was no longer needed. I don't think Jennifer Henry, the CFO, was willing to handicap how this would be resolved, which is why the kind of proposal in the budget that we put forward is being conservative and saying, just in case we need to be operating on the assumption that we're not going to get access to those funds that are currently tied up, but that look like they should be available to us. So it's hard for me to handicap, but I remain hopeful.
I think you're saying you don't know.
Yes,
and that's a good answer too.
I'm sorry for not being more.
No.
That's the bottom line, Judge. Is that at this juncture we just don't know.
Let me ask you a question I didn't think of when we were talking before. Would there be any value or any reason to pass a motion approving this dependent on the funds being released by the comptroller? Are you going to need this? Do we want to act on this before December if we can? That's what I'm asking.
In terms of the grant proposals that we're recommending to leave pending? I would say that that would be desirable. It would be desirable to be able to give them an answer and move forward on these programs that we're recommending pending today. I think that rather than a contingency motion, we did discuss this possibility with at the staff level. Rather than using a contingency motion, we thought that the better path forward would be to ask for the board's indulgence in perhaps an interim Zoom meeting where we could take some quick action on some of these pending items if things clear up.
Okay, that answers my question. Thank you.
That's what we recommend. Thank you all. Okay, so we'll move on to Potter County. This is a project that staff has been working closely with Potter County on for some time. Just to remind you of where we stand with this, back in 2022, the board approved a grant to Potter County to create a combined managed assigned counsel and public defender program that covered Potter and also Armstrong counties. It wasn't part of the sustainability grant program because it was just a county plus a very small partner county. And we are looking for at least 3 counties and recommending sustainability funding. So that grant is currently in place. They have been working very hard with counties across the Panhandle to begin to offer to extend their services to these regional areas that have very few, if any, lawyers and have great challenges in getting attorneys available to represent indigent defendants. So we think this is a very important project for that whole Panhandle region, and we're very strongly in favor of trying to move it forward. The one issue that I should bring to your attention is that the population of Potter County is a little bit above the guideline that the board has adopted for eligibility for sustainability grants. Our guideline is 100,000 population. They're a little bit above that. The board has waived that 100,000 threshold for other projects where the county in question can really serve as a very useful and valuable hub for a big swath of regional counties. We did that, for example, with San Angelo with Tom Green County. It was a little over the threshold. And we would be recommending the same thing here. We think that Potter's willingness to serve as an important hub for the entire Panhandle region is going to be particularly valuable. The other thing I want to note about this project is that this is really kind of what we would anticipate to be the first phase of perhaps even more counties wanting to join once the regional program is operational down the road, of course, funding available, of course. But those counties out there have a very significant challenge finding attorneys. And we think this is a huge part of the solution, and that's part of the solution. So with that said,
perhaps that's a bad measure to say how many people live in the county. Perhaps the measure should be how many lawyers are there around.
That's a good point, Justice Raddick. I think this is the big, for our regional programs that we've been working so hard on in recent years. That's the problem that they're really trying to solve. The biggest challenge and what's driving counties to come to us to request these sorts of programs. So we can certainly revisit the policy with you all and perhaps rather than making it population-based, look at some other factors. At this juncture, I think if you're willing to just waive that to approve this, I think it's that's our recommendation right now, and then we can refine the policy to really be more responsive to the needs. The last thing I'll note is that because there is a current public defender program that would be folded into this expansion office, part of the recommendation here is to approve this and then to reduce the continuing grant award that was on the continuing grant slate in June to take out the public defender office and just have that, grant for the managed assigned counsel component for the remaining years of eligibility. So that's reflected on the bottom of our sheet here. Any questions? I've given you a lot of information about Potter. Any questions? So we do have a motion. It's motion number 5 on your motion sheet. I'm happy to read it for you, Judge McGarry.
Go ahead.
Motion to recommend awarding Potter County an FY 2024 award of $3,422,629 for the Panhandle Area Regional Public Defender Office, and reducing the FY 24 Potter County continuing grant award of $971,699 down to $410,151 to remove the existing public defender component and include the managed assigned counsel program only. Mouthful. Sorry for the mouthful, but that's a complex motion and it is on the table.
I'll make a motion. Is there a second?
Judge Keller, are you there?
I think you're muted, Judge Keller.
I'm here. I second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all. So again, I think that out of an abundance of caution, given some of the uncertainties with the budget right now, we are recommending leaving the Dallas County request pending until the December board meeting or until such time that we might have an interim board meeting to address some of these matters that we have to leave pending at this time. The request from Dallas is for expanding the mental health division of their public defender office. I think it's a good program that could really help a lot of defendants in the jurisdiction, but at this juncture, and again, out of an abundance of caution, we think we need to hit the pause button until the dust settles on closing out FY23. And then we would anticipate coming back to you at the latest in December, if not before, with a recommendation to move forward on this one, if funds are available. So if there are no questions on Dallas, we can continue. So we're getting into a handful of grant modification requests. First one is a sad one to report, but Starr County, which is in participating in the Regional Public Defender Office with TRLA, has decided that they no longer wish to continue with the Regional Public Defender Office.
Oh,
It's unfortunate. We think that the program has really done a lot of good in that region. This is for Starr, Duval, and Jim Hogg counties. Reached out a number of times to the county judge and the other district judges in the region and other participating county judges. Haven't been getting any, they have not been communicative, but I did confirm with the auditor that they have made the decision to withdraw and they have notified TRLA formally that they're withdrawing. So I think it's an unfortunate development. I will also say that a group of Linda Gonzalez went down, on our staff went down and met with the county judge and reviewed things with some of the Trala folks to see if they could understand what might be changed to keep them in the program, but they ultimately decided to leave. So we're still trying to get more information. We'll let you know when we get it, but at this juncture, we have a recommendation to terminate the FY24 continued sustainability grant, Starr County of $645,249 based on the county's request to terminate.
I want to
So
vote no.
moved. Okay.
I think we got to move in a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
We'll try to get more information, and obviously we want to work with any county who wants to work with us to, but again, it's up to the local officials on how they want to proceed. And
And Edwin, can you go back to that screen real quick? I just have a question.
Sure.
How long was it in existence for, did you say?
I believe I think it was 6 years, Judge, but I can confirm that in just a quick moment. Bear with me.
So did we did a 4-year grant for them and then they did it on their own for 2 years and now they're saying no?
So actually they've been on the sustainability grant program where we've been funding 2/3 of the cost for the 3 counties to contract with TRLA. So for a number of years, they've been receiving 2/3 funding. This was different from our 80-60-40-20 type of grant. So I do think that cost is a factor, even though they're only paying 1/3. I think that cost is part of their decision making, but again, they haven't been communicative despite numerous efforts to communicate with them.
Okay, thank you.
So that's where
I think this is our first happening. I don't want to call it a failure because it was, very good faith on our part. That's for sure.
right. We'll see. We'll keep you posted, but right now we would ask that you all just de-obligate those funds. With that motion, we have a motion. Dornian, I'm sorry, did we already do the motion?
I think we already did it.
Yeah,
Okay.
we already passed it.
Thank you. Okay, well, so moving forward, there's a request from Tom Green County. They've requested an additional $47,949 increase in their sustainability grant for the Concho Valley Regional Public Defender Office. Originally, the county came in their renewal request for their sustainability grant, and at the June meeting, we presented their budget request, which was premised on a 6% cost of living increase that was countywide. They were still in the middle of their budget workshops. The county judge and the commissioners determined that they were going to go with an 8% cost of living adjustment this year across the board for all county employees. All these folks are part of the county, are on the county's payroll. And so they're requesting an additional $47,949 in order to make up for that additional 2%. And we do have a motion and a recommendation there. If you have any questions or concerns?
Nope, you want to read the motion?
Sure. So we have a motion to recommend increasing Tom Green County's 2024 improvement grant for the Concho Valley Regional Public Defender Office at $47,949 to a revised total award of $1,763,506 and authorizing reallocation of existing two-year FY22 Regional Public Defender Office expansion grant funds. This is under the ARPA grant to cover the cost of living adjustments and associated fringe benefit costs.
So move.
Second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all. Just getting close to the end here. So we have a request from Brazos County. Brazos County created a public defender office with the help of a grant of ARPA funds from TIDC. TIDC did a planning study. In fact, the improvement team worked very closely with them. And when TIDC prepared the planning study, they based the salaries on comparable prosecutor salaries in Brazos County. In the time between when the planning study was issued and when the grant award was commenced, the program began implementation, the county had made changes to the salary structure on the prosecutor side. So all Brazos is asking for here is to make adjustments accordingly to the public defender salaries that resulted in this, I guess, somewhat unfortunate timing in between the planning study and implementation. So the request we have here is to increase Brazos County's FY22 improvement grant for the public defender office by $64,566 to a total award of $1,924,465 using remaining ARPA funds. We do have a balance of ARPA funds currently obligated of $104,927.
So move.
Second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all. We have a quick handful of requests for extraordinary grant funds. The first one is from Bell County. They've incurred $69,701 in indigent defense expenses related to capital murder cases for a couple of defendants noted on the sheet. They have participated in the RPDO for capital cases. These particular cases were not eligible for RPDO representation. And the standard policy on extraordinary disbursement grants provides for a standard limit of $50,000 per case. So we do have a recommendation to approve an extraordinary grant to Bell County of $69,701 to reimburse eligible indigent defense expenses in the cases of Cedric Marks and Marvin Guy. That was a
So
motion.
moved.
Second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all. The next extraordinary grant request is from Comanche County. They've incurred $78,857 in indigent defense expenses related to the capital murder case of Brendan Lane Jenkins. They have been participating in the Regional Public Defender Office for capital cases since 2020. The prosecution originally sought the death penalty in this case, but then RPDO worked on it and the prosecution withdrew or waived the death penalty, at which time the case reverted to appointment of private counsel. So the county is requesting $50,000, which is the standard limit based on our policy for reimbursement of capital defense cases in this case. If the committee were interested in going above that, as you all know, the committee has the discretion to go above the $50,000 limit if you so desire. Any discussion on this one?
Stop it. So move.
Okay, so we have a motion to award Comanche County an extraordinary disbursement grant of $50,000 for capital defense costs incurred in the case of Brandon Lane Jenkins. We have a motion.
Sorry.
And is there a second?
I'll second Judge Keller's motion. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Thank you all. We're almost done. Jackson County is requesting an extraordinary disbursement grant for capital defense expenses in a couple of cases. We have documented, they've sent in the documentation, we've documented about 118,000 in expenses. Of those, 32,180 were for expert witnesses. Jackson County has not participated in the RPDO for capital cases, except in 1 year back in 2012. So they were in it for 1 year, but then they got out. Jackson County did receive previously a TIDC extraordinary grant for capital murder defense costs. That one was for $271,798. So the county did have some experience with very high capital defense costs, but still declined to participate in RPDO. Their population is 15,120. This amount is more. The amount that's spent on this case is 75% of their typical 3-year average total indigent defense cases. So it is a big impact on their budget. The county is joining the Victoria-based Regional Public Defender Office for non-capital cases. And they have requested $100,000 based on the $50,000 per defendant guideline in our extraordinary policy. And I did note on the bottom bullet point here, when a county participates in RPDO, which Jackson doesn't, everything is covered except for expert witness case expenses. And so the recommendation here is to consider an FY23 extraordinary award for some portion of the expert costs in capital defense that they would have incurred, whether or not they were participating in RPDO. This one may be.
Can you say that last line again, Edward? You kind of garbled.
Sure.
I don't know if it's my computer or yours.
It's probably my mouth, Judge. So if a county does participate in RPDO and Jackson County does not, but if they did, they would still be responsible for funding the expert witness expenses. So the attorney fees, mitigation, and investigation would be covered by RPDO, but they'd still be on the hook for the expert cases. So the recommendation here is that the board may want to consider an award of some portion of the expert expenses that they would have incurred, whether or not they were in RPDO.
And so you're asking for us to either approve the 32,000 or a portion of it. Is that correct? That's our recommendation, is that you would want to use your discretion to consider that. Well, Judge Keller or Justice Raddick, do y'all have any input on this? Y'all have been here a long time, longer than I have.
I think it's okay to pay some of what they would have been responsible for anyway. As far as figuring out how much, I don't know how we would do that.
I mean, I think you could recommend some figure in the ballpark of 20,000, which would be more than half of their expert. Again, the expert witness fees we documented were 32,180. You could approve all of it or some portion of it. It's really kind of a policy decision on your part, given the context of not participating in RPDO.
Judge Raddick, what do you think?
I agree with you. Of course.
Okay.
Well-
Madera, do you want to recommend a specific amount of money to go to in our motion to the board?
You know, I'll take your advice. I mean, you want to give them 20? You want to give them the whole 32? Do we give them 15? I mean, I
Let's
guess
give them 20.
give them 20.
Yeah.
That sounds,
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve 20,000.
Okay, so we have a motion to recommend awarding Jackson County an extraordinary disbursement grant of $20,000 for a portion of expert costs for capital defense.
Much better said than I did, Edwin. I'll make that motion.
and I'll second it.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all. We have one last item and then we can wrap it up for the day. Thank you all for your patience this late afternoon. Maverick County, this is related to Operation Lone Star. As you all know, TIDC has in place a large grant to the Lubbock County Private Defender Office to be the indigent defense hub for OLS. There is a huge surge that you may have seen in the media of cases, arrests that have been happening in Maverick County. There were so many arrests in such a short period of time that LPDO could not find sufficient attorneys to make appointments in those cases. So LPDO had to say, with this extraordinary spike in arrests, we're overwhelmed and we have no capacity. And in that instance, it reverts back to the county to appoint local counsel. When they do that, the costs of that counsel aren't covered under LPDO. So we are recommending an extraordinary disbursement grant from amounts appropriated to TIDC for OLS representation to cover the costs in full of those cases that Maverick County has had to appoint to local counsel to ensure that those folks got representation when LPDO was unable to appoint. So we have a motion to recommend awarding Maverick County an extraordinary reimbursement grant of up to $300,000 out of funds appropriated to TIDC for Operation Lone Star Indigent Defense for Operation Lone Star costs incurred in cases in which the Lubbock Private Defender Office did not have capacity to appoint counsel in FY23 and possibly FY24, and authorize disbursement of funds upon TIDC staff's receipt of documentation of authorized expenditures.
Is there a motion?
So move.
All right, I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all. That concludes all of our pending business. I greatly appreciate you all being able to join us for a late afternoon.